Welcome Greenbrier students to this screencast. Today we're going to talk about what is a function and what do they do. Again, this is Mr. Martin from Greenbrier Middle School. As you've learned previously, ordered pairs consist of an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. And you learned that a series of ordered pairs on a coordinate plane can represent a pattern. You can use this mapping to show ordered pairs. And this comes straight from your book, and you want to make sure that you've underlined what a mapping is. A mapping represents two sets of objects or items. An arrow connects the items together to represent a relationship between those two items. So for instance, here we have a mapping between the set of numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the set of numbers 1, 3, 5, and 7. If we were to write out the set of those two numbers, the mapping of those two sets as ordered pairs, we would write out 1, 7. We would write out 2, 1. We would have 3, 5. And then we would have the point or the ordered pair 4, 3. And don't forget your curly braces or brackets, denoting that this is a set. Alright, so notice this set has 4 ordered pairs shown by the mapping of the set of numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, mapping onto the set of numbers 1, 3, 5, and 7. Now, it turns out that when you write these ordered pairs, you're writing a set. If you notice, I've been using the word set as we were talking about a mapping. A set is a collection of numbers, geometric figures, letters, or other objects that have some characteristic in common. So for instance, I could use my curly braces and write out a set that includes tiger, cheetah, maybe you have a lion, and maybe you also have, a leopard. Well, that is a set of cats or wild cats that you may find at a zoo or in different parts of the world. Notice these all have something in common. They're all felines. You have the tiger, cheetah, lion, and leopard. They all have some characteristic in common. I could easily write down a set of sports cars or a set of baseball teams or a set of numbers. Say I want to write out the set of even numbers. Well, I could write out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. Notice that's our set of even numbers. All right, 2n. I could write out a set of odd numbers. Okay, so a set, again, is a collection of numbers, geometric figures, letter, or other objects that have some characteristic in common. So keep that vocabulary in mind as we continue to talk about functions. Now on this page we've got quite a few vocab words, and I'm going to underline all of them. We have the word relation, we have the word input, we have output, function, domain, and range. And we'll talk about what those mean as we read this together. A relation is any set of ordered pairs or the mapping between a set of inputs and outputs. And if you go back here, we have this mapping, and this mapping represents a relation. It's a mapping of one set of inputs onto another set of outputs. So that mapping represents a relation. Now the first coordinate of an ordered pair in a relation is the input, and the second coordinate is the output. So if you go back and take a look here, we have our set of ordered pairs, this relation here, and we have our input and our outputs, okay? A function is a special kind of relation, okay? A function is a special kind of mapping. A function maps each input to one and only one output. Okay? A function is a special type of mapping or relation that maps each input to one and only one output. In other words, a function has no input with more than one output. And the domain of a function is the set of all inputs. The range of a function is the set of all outputs. All right, so keep in mind a relation is a relationship. Okay, is the relation between two sets of ordered pairs, two sets of numbers creating and resulting in ordered pairs. The first coordinate is the input, the second coordinate is the output, And a function is a special kind of relation that maps each input to one and only one output. And we call those inputs in a function the domain, and we call the outputs of a function the range. So let's take a look here. Notice this mapping, okay? This mapping shows the inputs or the domain, and it shows the outputs or the range. All right, and I'll put an I down here so that you know these are inputs, these are outputs. Notice the domain is 1, 2, 3, and 4 written in set notation here. Notice we have the range of 1, 3, 5, and 7, again written in set notation there. This mapping represents a function because each input, notice how each input here has one and only one output. Each input is associated with only one number over here in the output column. So the domain values have one and only one range value associated with them. This is not a function here. So here's a counterexample. This is not a function. Why is this not a function? We'll take a look at the domain. Again, the domain over here on the left, I'll put D for domain, R for range, I down on the bottom to let you know that's the inputs and the outputs. Well, the domain, we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in the range, we have the numbers 1, 3, 5, and 7. Notice that the domain value 2 is associated with both the number 3 range value and the range value 5. Notice one domain value is associated with two different range values. Therefore, this mapping does not represent a function. It's a relation, yes, but it is not a function. A function is a special kind of relation where each domain value is associated or mapped onto only one range value. So let's take a look real quick. Here we have two tables, table of inputs and outputs, and then x values and y values. Let's write out this first table. In fact, let's write them out as a set of ordered pairs. So here we have negative 10 and 20. We have negative 5 and 10. We have 0 and 0. 5, 10. And then we have 10, 20. So make sure you're using correct notation. Notice I'm using the curly braces here to denote a set. And notice I'm writing my ordered pairs with parentheses and commas. Now, what is the domain of this relation? Well, the domain is the set of inputs. So negative 10, negative 5, 0, 5, and 10. What is the set of range values or output values? Well, the range is 20, 10, and 0. Notice I just have 3 output values. And to be a little bit more neat, I'm going to write those in numerical order. 0, 10, and 20. That's not so much of a big deal, but I'm going to do it just for sake of being consistent. I wrote my domain values in numerical order. I'm going to go ahead and put my range values in numerical order. Now here's the question, is this a function or not? Well, let's take a look. Does each value in the domain, is it associated with one and only one value in the range? We'll take a look. Negative 10 is associated with 20. That's fine. One value associated with one other value. Negative 5 and 10, okay. 0 and 0 associated there. 5 and 10, and then 10 and 20. Notice, there is no number that appears twice in our input column, meaning none of these inputs, none of these domain values are associated with more than one output. So this is indeed a function, all right? This here is a function because each input is associated with one and only one output. Now, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and take a look at B. So go ahead right now, pause the video, and take a look at B on your own. Okay, hopefully you've had a moment to write out the set of ordered pairs for this relation. Hopefully you've had a moment to write out the domain. I did it in numerical order again this time. The range I did the same with. Hopefully you've gotten those 3 items correct. Now the question is this a function? Well, let's take a look. The number 20 in the domain is associated with the number -10. But then take a look down here, a couple rows down in our table, we have the number 20 again. And it's associated with the number +10. We have the same input value associated with 2 different output values. And take a look at 10. The number 10 is associated with -5, but then if you take a look at it again, it's associated with the number +5. Again, same input value associated with 2 different output values. So 2 domain values associated with 2 different range values. This is not a function. A function associates each domain value with one and only one range. And unfortunately here we have 2 different domain values associated with different range values or output values. I hope this helps clear up what is a function and what do they do. Check out some of the other screencasts to get more information on functions. Thank you.